Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt, and I'm excited to talk to you about the movies opening this first full weekend in September. There's one major theatrical release, a secondary theatrical release for documentary fans, and a highly anticipated film on Apple TV Plus that I'm going to be diving into today. But we will kick things off with the major theatrical release, and that is The Conjuring Last Rites. This is the fourth film carrying the Conjuring title, the ninth film in kind of the expanded universe that includes three Annabelle films and two films from the Nun franchise. Uh, you know, getting up there. The first one of these Conjuring films was 12 years ago in 2013. They're based on the real life cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. And this is, billed as kind of the one that ended it all. It has a very somber and serious opening crawl that, and a few red herring flags about some personal health that might have you believing this is going to end in a certain grim way that doesn't really come to fruition. That being said, you know, The Conjuring has never been my most favorite franchise, but I've found them all sturdy. If you read Binge Watch this week, I went through kind of the franchise, and while I haven't always taken to a lot of the Annabelle films, though we do get a steady dose of of some Annabelle in these Conjuring films, including this one. I have pretty well enjoyed the Conjuring films. I like Farmiga and Patrick Wilson as kind of this duo here. This one takes place a little bit later in 1986, toward the end of their career, as they're getting ready to hand off to their daughter Judy, who factors in here quite a lot. We start in 1964 with a early basically the case that brought about Judy's birth and kind of the harrowing circumstances of that. Then we flash forward to the 80s. They're semi-retired, Ed dealing with a little bit of heart issues. Their daughter, Judy, played by Mia Tomlinson, is engaged to Tony, played by Ben Hardy. And this is kind of a multi-generation passing working on this case. I thought the production was sound. I thought some of the visuals were very sound for this kind of a movie, and I enjoyed the way this one all comes together. At the end, you kind of get a nice nod to the previous films. Then over the ending credits, they play some stock footage of the Warrens. This is as all these films have been a tribute to kind of their work and their belief and how they got started in this field and the things that have kind of made them iconic in this field. I'm giving this one a mild thumbs up. I had a good time with it. It it might be my second favorite. I've always enjoyed the original Conjuring the most. I thought two and three were entertaining. I liked this one probably just as much as those ones, maybe a little bit more. I liked the interaction, the passing to the next generation. I thought it worked. It has kind of a fun ending that feels like a capstone on the franchise. Although you could see them setting things up to perhaps hand things off to Judy, but I think we could be satisfied seeing this end a franchise that has lasted 12 years, four feature films, and an expanded universe that is closing in on double digits. That's a pretty good run for this kind of horror film and franchise. Next up on the docket is Highest to Lowest. This one coming from director Spike Lee. It got a premiere at Cannes earlier this year. It features Denzel Washington as a music executive who is dealing with a lot in his business life and then soon dealing with a lot in his personal life as someone attempts to kidnap his son Trey, but ends up grabbing the son of his driver, Paul Christopher. And you might be thinking to yourself, boy, that plot synopsis sounds a little familiar. Well, it should. It is the plot synopsis of High and Low, which is a great Akira Kurosawa film from 1963. I'm a big fan of that film and of Kurosawa. If you've been following my director series, you would know it was on there. One of my favorites from him. I was curious to see. Spike didn't call this an adaptation, more of a reimagining Although from a plot standpoint, it follows pretty closely to the beats of that original film, though this one very much set in New York City, very much set in the music industry, high and low. Followed a shoe executive, maybe something a little bit bigger in Japan. There are probably some cultural references there. This one very much of its time and place. Some of the things I like best were the way it captured New York City. There are some sequences on subway trains that I thought were really engaging and really interesting. But some of the beginning of it is a little bit feels a little bit disjointed how they're trying to work in the setup and get things going. Some of the ending pieces didn't totally work for me. I love some of the musical numbers, some of it didn't work for me, but that closing song in there I thought was really great. I had a lot of fun with. It's hard. If I had never seen High and Low, I might have appreciated some of the aspects of this more. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I'm giving it a thumbs neutral. I just thought it was okay. It feels in some ways like an unnecessary revisiting of this plot. But in some ways, it does some great things to capture kind of the magic and the heart of New York City, which is a little bit what Spike Lee is always about. And Denzel Washington is pretty good here. So is Jeffrey Wright, who plays his driver. Uh, Most of the cast does a nice job. I didn't dislike the film. It just didn't quite meet my expectations. I was curious to see what an Americanized adaptation of this movie would work like. And it doesn't quite all come together. It's not as dynamic as some of Lee's other films. Doesn't feel like it has some of the edge of some of his other films, which have made them kind of iconic in the landscape and something to look forward to. This one is fine, but it didn't quite work for me. Last up, I want to talk about a movie called The American Southwest. This is a new documentary feature that opened in theaters on Friday. This one is about an hour and 45 minutes. It's narrated by Quanah Chasing Horse, and it is a journey down the Colorado River. It explores the region's wildlife, its cultural history, and some of the uncertain future about the water and all the communities and even countries who rely on the Colorado River for its source of water, for its life. I mean, this one cuts all the way down our country. It helped carve out the Grand Canyon, goes all the way into Mexico. And this documentary feature really follows that, kind of gives you a sense of the grand scale and scope. As someone who lives in Colorado, I was very interested to see how this was going to come to life. I enjoyed Chasing Horse's narration. I thought it did a really nice job of kind of tracking the path of the Colorado River and showing its impact, looking at all the life that it touches, all the communities that it goes through, all the communities that depend on it. And it's a very beautiful documentary. We don't see a ton of documentaries probably getting a wide theatrical berth. So if you are a fan of documentaries, if you are a fan of kind of beautiful shots of nature, this is something worth going and checking out in theaters. Also giving this one a mild thumbs up. I enjoyed it for what it was as a documentary feature. I thought some of the landscapes it captured were beautiful. Some of the questions it poses were really interesting. And I would imagine seeing it on a big screen would be a thrill for fans of this type of film. So The American Southwest, one that were worth checking out in theaters. I had a good time with Conjuring Last Rites. Highest to lowest, I appreciate the craft. There are things to like about it. It doesn't quite live up to my expectations, but there were no bad movies in the batch this week. I think all of them are watchable and worth checking out depending on your interests. But that'll be a wrap on the movies for this week. Next week, we have a couple of big ones. Downton Abbey, the grand finale. I am excited to go check that out. The third and presumably final theatrical film for Downton Abbey, which also had a 5-year run on television. We also have The Long Walk, based on the Stephen King novel, that is out next week. And this is Spinal Tap 2, the much anticipated follow-up to the classic mockumentary. So I'll be looking at all of those. So you can check back next Saturday. We will be touching on those. But until then, I hope to see you guys at the movie.